Hello and welcome back to my channel. You're watching What Helen Reads and I'm Helen, and today I am doing a roundup of all the books I read in the first quarter of the year. So this is my Q1 summary where I'm going to give you the stats and also highlight just a couple of the books that were standout books for me in the first quarter of the year. So in total I managed to read 51 books in the first 3 months. Which puts me 6 books ahead of my book goals for this year. So this year I toned it back a bit just because I knew that I'd be really busy. Now things are picking up post-COVID. I'm really busy at work. I'm starting to travel more for work. I am also starting to go out more socially and have more plans at weekends, and also because I've started this channel, a lot of time is now taken up recording videos and editing the videos, so I have less time to read overall. And I also wanted to focus on quality over quantity, so instead of my kind of normal target, I decided that I was going to have a goal of 180 books for the year, which roughly averaged out to 15 books a month. So hence, by now I was expecting to read about 45 books, but I'm up to 51, so 6 books ahead of my goal, and I'm really pleased with everything that I've read. I think I've definitely achieved the goal of reading more quality books over quantity. Just took a step back and thought, you know what, I absolutely love reading. I need to get pleasure out of it. Doesn't matter if it takes me 1 night to read a book or 2 nights or 3 nights. If I'm enjoying it and it's a really good book, that's all that matters. And so that's been my focus, and I've been, like I say, I've enjoyed everything that I've read so far in the first quarter, so really pleased with not only my progress but the types of books I've been reading as well. So let's talk about the formats that I've been reading books. So mostly I read Kindle Unlimited books. I've got a Kindle Unlimited subscription, and so mainly I read Kindle Unlimited. I do buy the odd book, and I will buy a book, an e-version of a book, if it is not on Kindle Unlimited and I really want to read it, but mainly I read Kindle Unlimited. In the first quarter I read 1 ARC, 5 audiobooks, 1 beta, 42 Kindle Unlimited books, and then 2 physical books. So you can see, like I say, that I do tend to read majority of Kindle Unlimited. Then in terms of the genre of books that I've been reading, I read 10 alien or sci-fi romances, 7 contemporary or small town romance, 1 sports romance, 6 dark romances, 2 historicals, 9 mafia romances, 3 MC, 4 Omegaverse, 4 paranormal, 1 monster romance, and 4 rockstar romances. So that was kind of the breakdown. Now in terms of the tropes, I kind of looked at those as well, so not only the genres but some of the key tropes that I read. So I read 4 abduction romances, 9 with an age gap, 5 that I would classify as protector romances. This is where the hero needs to kind of protect the woman, some sort of romantic suspense where something dramatic happens and then the heroines need to be protected from somebody. 4 single parent romances, 4 fated mates, 7 captive romances, and 8 close proximity romances. So you can sort of see from there, you know, I read a lot of dark romance, a lot of mafia romance. They were sort of my favourites. And then when it comes to that, obviously, then you get a lot of these protector style romances and close proximity and captive sort of arrangements. So they are my favourite books to read, and I think the stats show that they're the ones that I tend to gravitate to more than the others. So of all of those that I've read then, what would I recommend? Now, I've said this before, I'm at quite a strict star rater. I don't do half-star ratings and I don't do a 6-star rating, and I pretty much stick to the Goodreads descriptions of the stars. So 1 is it wasn't for me, 2 is it's okay, 3 means I liked it, 4 means I really liked it, and 5 means it's amazing. Now, I know that some people won't like this because it means that I generally give books 3 or 4-star rating. Now, I think 4-star is fine. I don't think anyone can complain too much about that. But if I give a book a 3-star rating, I think a lot of people interpret that as I didn't like it or I wouldn't recommend it. Certainly a lot of the booktubers I read tend to give, you know, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5-star ratings and then give 6 to their absolute favourites. So I understand that if I give something a 3-star rating, somebody might see that as me not recommending it or me not liking the book, but that's absolutely not the case. I still liked the book. But the good thing is that the majority of books I read this month were 4-star books. So in terms of my star ratings, I gave 7 books 3 stars, I gave 40 books a 4-star rating, and 3 books a 5-star rating. So I think, again, that really shows just the quality of the books that I'm picking up, making sure that I'm only reading the books that I really think I'm going to enjoy, and that have slightly more quality over, like, you know, the quantity of the books that I'm reading. So what I wanted to share with you today are a reminder of the 5-star books, the ones that I'd absolutely recommend, and then I've also got a couple of notable reads that I really want to highlight. So the first book that I gave a 5-star to this year was Broken by the Horde King by Zoey Draven. I absolutely love this one. This one is book 4 in the Horde Kings of Dakar series, and I've spoken about this a couple of times in a few different videos. But the reason I love this book so much was just the way I felt when I was reading it. And this is really the difference between a 4-star read for me and a 5-star read. How did I feel when I was reading it? Was it a complete page turner? Could I put it down? And did it end in a way that really satisfied my soul and is absolutely the types of books that I want to read? And Broken by the Horde King, from the very first moment I picked up that book, from the very first chapter all the way through, I just absolutely loved these characters, wanted to be with them, felt everything that they felt, the highs and the lows, and, you know, the pain and the sorrow, and really just all of the feels I wanted to feel, and truly believe that these two people should absolutely be together and would be together forever. Now, if you don't know what Broken by the Horde Kings is all about, this whole Horde Kings of Dakar series is set on Dakari. It's an alien sort of planet, and the native people to this planet are a group of like barbarian warriors. They live out on the land. They operate in hordes in different parts and different territories on this planet to protect the planet. Now, there is an ultimate horde king, but each of the hordes themselves have their own kings. But there are also humans that live on this planet, but they're really treated like second-class citizens. They're only there because they're kind of refugees. They're not allowed to hunt or do certain things on the planet, and so they're very much in these communities that you know, are not doing so well. The humans on this planet are not doing so well. But in this particular book, we are following Kiran and Maeva, and Maeva is a human, but she was found and rescued by a Dakari family who took her in and brought her up as their own, and she was very much bullied and picked on because she was different when she was a child. And Kiran, who is kind of the prince of this community, very much was going to be going on to become a Horde King. He is Maeva's best friend. He protects her from other people, stops people from bullying her, and they form this really close relationship. Now, she has been in love with Kiran since she was a child, and she firmly believes that they're supposed to be together. And when he eventually does go off to become a Horde King and comes back, she puts herself forward and offers herself to him, and he very much rejects her. And then she is absolutely devastated and distraught, and he goes away to be a Horde King. Now, while he's away, she trains to be a healer and becomes a very, very successful healer in her village. And 7 years later, he comes back and he needs a healer for his horde, and he invites her to join him in this horde as her healer. And like I say, I absolutely love this one because from the very first page, you absolutely believe their friendship, their love, that they would ultimately be together, but you also felt their heartbreak, how distraught she was, how devastated she was by his rejection. And then when he finally comes back and they get the opportunity to have a second chance at their romance and their friendship, I just loved how it ended up playing out and how their story concluded. So would highly recommend this one, absolutely loved it. Then the second 5-star I gave was to book 6 in the same series, so Horde Kings of Dakar, and this one is Throne of the Horde King. So this is the 6th and final book in the series and absolutely wraps up everything that's been going on with the rest of the books. In this one, we're following Arik and Kara. Now, Arik is actually the illegitimate son of the ultimate Horde King back in the city, and this Horde King is not been, it's not a good egg. It's not a good egg, and over the course of the series, we are very much working towards this king being overthrown, and everyone very much is staking their hopes on Arik, who will rise and take over from his father. Meanwhile, Kara is has been living with kind of these seer women. They're like sorceress women. They live in the mountains, and Arik has very much gone to them for help because of this red mist that's been on the planet that we've seen throughout the rest of the series. And Kara has very much seen a vision about what's going to happen, and she desperately wants to go with Arik to try and sort all of this out. In this one, we have very much close proximity. They travel back together, and they ultimately work together to kind of like conclude the story. I didn't enjoy this one as much as Broken by the Horde King. I have to say that if I was going to rank them, Broken by the Horde King for me was the absolute standout of the series. Absolutely loved it. But Throne of the Horde King was absolutely epic. Like I say, because it's a conclusion to the whole story, it's a group of people that we've come to know and love. It's a story we're really invested in, and the characters for Arik and Kara are absolutely brilliant. Their romance is great, and so I could not give this one a 5-star. It was an absolute 5-star series really, and a great finale to the entire series, so highly recommend. Then the only other 5-star I gave out in the first quarter of the year was The Auction by Maggie Cole. Now this is book 1 of a duet, and the second book is The Vow, and The Vow I rated as a 4-star, but collectively together it's a 5-star duet. So I'm going to talk about them sort of together because you can't not. So The Auction is, you know, in The Auction we meet Blakely and Riggs. Now Riggs is, there's a bit of an age gap between Blakely and Riggs. He is her father's business partner, so he isn't quite as old as the father, but he is still about 15 years older than Blakely. Now, they've been partners in a business for a long time and are extremely wealthy, but Riggs has recently found out that her father has been stealing money from him and their clients, and he decides that he's going to get his revenge. Now, meanwhile, Blakely has been on the run because her father very much wants her wants to force her into an arranged marriage to support his kind of like political business agendas and find a match that will work for him. And she absolutely does not want her father to pick her husband for her. So she's basically been on the run for about 7 years, and is currently working several jobs, one of which is as a waitress in a strip club in town. Now this all sort of comes to a bit of a head, and Blakely ends up running back into Riggs again when her father is close to finding her. He's almost tracked her down. He's sent his goons in to pick her up. They have picked her up, she's in the back of a car, but as they're going along in the car, they get a flat tyre. They get out to change the tyre, and it's her opportunity to kind of get out of the car and escape. And she gets out of the car and escapes and runs to the nearest building and goes inside the nearest building, which turns out to be a sex club. And what's going on in the sex club at this point in time is an auction, and she finds her way into an auction at the sex club, of which Riggs is a member, and he's there. And when he sees her, he instantly recognises who she is, and he's delighted on a couple of fronts. One, he's always been attracted to her, and now she's a lot older, and although he is older than her, she's now really eligible for him to have a relationship with if he wants to. 2, he is trying to work out how to get revenge on her father, and he thinks this is a perfect opportunity. If he can get Blakely onto his side, then he can use her against her father, so that will help in his revenge plot. But mainly because he is heavily into BDSM, he is a dominant, he's looking for his next submissive, and he believes very much at this point in time that she's also into the lifestyle and wants to be submissive, and he thinks this is the perfect opportunity to get himself a new submissive. So he bids on her, wins her, and at first he gets to keep her for a month, and she gets to be his sub for a month. Of course, when he gets her home and they start to talk, he kind of realizes pretty quickly what's actually happened, and she wasn't there because she wants to be submissive. However, she's always had a crush on Riggs as well. Even as a teenager, she really was attracted to him, and so she's not averse to giving this lifestyle a go, especially if it means that Riggs is going to keep her safe from her dad. And so they start a relationship. I absolutely love Riggs' character. He is the ultimate alpha dominant hero. I love their dom-sub relationship and how she explores her sexuality, finds out more about the lifestyle, works out if she is actually submissive and can submit to him. And I love how that all played out. Of course, this was a duet, so we're leading up to a massive cliffhanger at the end of book 1, and we kind of know what it's going to be, right? Because this is laid out very clearly that he's going to use her to get back at her father, and of course, as he develops feelings for her, he keeps this private, and we know that she's probably not going to take too kindly to it if she finds out, if and when she finds out. So I don't want to say too much about that or what happens, because it is a bit of a spoiler, even though it is fairly obvious what's going to come along and what's going to happen. But I absolutely book one. Again, it's because of the way it made me feel when I read it. I was really invested in these characters, thoroughly enjoyed every moment, felt every feeling, and was absolutely devastated when we got to the cliffhanger. And when I read it at the time, book 2 wasn't out yet, and I was completely traumatized by the fact that I'd have to wait to find out what was going to happen and read the second book. So I thought it was a brilliant end, a brilliant conclusion, really left me on the seat of the chair, really wanting to pick up book 2. Overall, I did really thoroughly enjoy it, and overall the duet is definitely a 5-star read, so if you haven't read it yet, I would highly recommend. Okay, and now for some notable reads of God of Malice by Rina Kent, which is book 1 in the Legacy of God series. Now, this was the first Rina Kent I've ever read, and a lot of people said it had Untouchable by San Mariano vibes, and so I was there for it because I absolutely love a psychopathic hero, and boy did Rina Kent deliver on that. So we are following Killian and Glyndon. Now, Killian is a true psychopath. You know, when he was a young boy, he brought home it was either a mouse or a rat, and he dissected it, and the mother was horrified, and he ends up going into medicine to be a doctor because it's one of the ways he can satisfy his craving to cut into things and find out what's inside and what makes someone tick. So this is sort of a new and adult book. They're still in kind of university, college if you like, and he's training to be a medical student. This book starts where Glyndon is very devastated and depressed about a friend who's recently committed suicide, and this friend threw himself off a cliff near to their school, and in her kind of grief, she goes back to the place where he threw himself off, and she's standing there thinking about what he did, why he did it, and whether or not she should do the same and throw herself off this cliff. Now, Killian happens to be there, and he goes about saving her, and I'm going to put that in quotes, saving her, not saving her. He is a psychopath, remember, and he's very interested in what is driving her to do this. And so before she can throw herself off the cliff, he kind of grabs her but holds her over the edge. So he now puts her in a position where she's got to choose. Does she want him to let her go, and so she plummets to her death, or does she want to be saved? And she chooses to be saved, but he wants something in return for him saving her, and in this particular scenario it is a sexual favour, and of course she's very reluctant and says no to start off with, and he says, well, you've got a choice, you either do this for me or I'm gonna let you go. And when she said okay, I'll do it, then he kind of manipulates her, or like twists what she says into saying, well, basically you agreed. And she says, no, well, I didn't agree to it. I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I didn't really have a choice. And he said, but you still chose it, and therefore it must have been what you wanted. So I absolutely love the way this hero thinks. We get chapters in his point of view, which I really liked, because he is starting to have feelings towards Glyndon. He doesn't understand why he's so obsessed with her and wants to figure her out. And he's really interested in the fact that she hasn't bored him yet, because normally he can figure someone out pretty quickly and he ends up getting bored and moving on, but with her he isn't, and he wants to continue to poke and prod and dissect and figure out what is going on in her head. Now Glyndon has her own issues and problems and wants to stay away from Killian but cannot, because he just absolutely just, you know, injects himself into her life, and she can't get away from him. But over time she starts to really like that and like him, you know. And also one of the, and I put this in my notes when after I finished reading it, but this is ultimately why women like the bad boys, right? Because he is bad for everyone but her, and although he starts out being pretty bad for her, towards her, he ends up being totally obsessed and possessive, but also kind and sweet, and where he can't live without her and will do anything for her. And I just absolutely love that, and why I love these types of books so much and these types of heroes. So 4 out of 5 stars, but almost a 5-star, would highly recommend. So the next one I'm going to give a shout out to is The Madness of Lord Ian McKenzie by Jennifer Ashley. So this is one of the physical copies I read in the first quarter, and also one of the few historicals that I read. Again, I rated this one 4 stars, was nearly a 5-star, but didn't quite make it, but I absolutely love this one. So in this one, we are following obviously Lord Ian McKenzie. Everyone thinks he's mad. He is definitely on the autistic spectrum. He is a brilliant man. He has a brilliant mind, but he is not so great with social interaction. And then we have Beth, who is the heroine, and she is about to marry another man, and Lord Ian McKenzie kind of puts her off and says, he's not really a great guy, I think you could do better. In fact, why don't you marry me instead? Now, she turns down Lord Ian McKenzie's marriage proposal, but she also calls off the wedding to this other man, and she decides instead that she's done with love and the idea of marriage, and she goes off to Paris. And while she's there, she meets Isabella, who is the estranged wife of Lord Ian McKenzie's brother. Lord Ian McKenzie follows her to Paris, and they have more interactions there, and ultimately they start a relationship. What I love about this one in particular was that part of the story was also a bit of a murder mystery. Some women have been murdered. Some people think Lord Ian McKenzie may have done it. Certainly there's something very shady about his family, and there's a local police officer from Scotland Yard who is trying to absolutely get the evidence to pin it on one of the McKenzie brothers. And Beth absolutely does not believe that Lord Ian McKenzie has done this at all, and she decides to start her own investigation to figure out who the murderer is, to clear Ian's name, and obviously that puts her in a little bit of jeopardy. So I absolutely love this one. I thought the plot was really interesting, the characters are great, it's a great setup for the rest of the series. Did absolutely love this one, would highly recommend if you like historical romances. Then the next one I want to give a shout out to is Taken by a Sinner by Michelle Horde. I absolutely love a mafia romance, and this one ticked all the boxes for me. The main hero, Nicholas, was super intense, and that's what I've said about him before, and I'll say it again, he was intense. He was absolutely obsessed with the heroine, and just was totally focused on her. And yeah, there's no other word to describe him but intense. I absolutely loved everything about it. So in this one we're following Nicholas and Tess. Like I say, Nicholas is super intense, absolutely fantastic hero. Tess does not want anything to do with the mafia lifestyle, but she is becoming embroiled in it because her mother has recently married Nicholas's dad. So Nicholas becomes her stepbrother. Now, because he's head of the Greek mafia, she becomes his responsibility, and he needs to make sure that, one, she is acting in the way that you would expect a mafia princess to act, but also to make sure that she's protected and looked after, and that involves an arranged marriage. Now, he's going to marry her off to one of his cousins, but as the wedding gets closer, he becomes more obsessed with her, more attracted to her, more possessive over her, and ultimately on the wedding day he cannot bring himself to let his cousin marry her, so he steps in right at the last minute and marries her instead. So what follows after that is extreme close proximity. They're obviously living together, trying to figure out how their marriage is going to work, and she harbours quite a lot of anger towards him. She does not want this marriage to take place, and they clash at every turn, but their chemistry is electric, and like I say, Nicholas is super intense, and I just loved everything about this. So I would absolutely highly recommend not only this book but the next book in the series as well. And then the final book that I'm going to mention that kind of gets an honourable mention is Revved to the Max by Melanie Moreland. I love this one. It's a small town romance, but it was so happy. It made me so happy. I was smiling throughout. It was such a light book, and I've been reading quite a lot of dark and mafia romances and some monster romances as well. And this one was just such a lovely breath of fresh air. It was light and upbeat and fun, and I loved the. I loved the hero. He was a very grumpy hero, but also absolutely obsessed and madly in love with the heroine. And I just loved everything about this story. It was absolutely delicious and perfect. So basically what happens in Revved to the Max is that Maxx is the owner of a garage, and they do repairs and restorations, and his specialty is restoring old motorbikes. Now, he is desperately in need of someone to help him with his home life, his administration, and sorting things out in the garage. And he puts an ad in the paper for a Girl Friday, and Charlie answers the ad. And now he thinks Charlie, by her name, is a man, and he's quite happy with this because he has given up on love and he doesn't want any more women drama. So he offers her the job and expecting her to be a man, but when she turns up she's obviously a woman. However, she actually rolls into town the night before she's due to start work for him, and she ends up in a bar and bumps into Maxx, and they have a one-night stand and don't actually realise who each other is until the following day when she goes to meet her new boss and realises it's the man that she met the night before in the bar. And he's absolutely livid because he thinks she's lied to him. He wasn't expecting it to be her. He was absolutely thinking it was going to be a man. And now he is terrified because he's so attracted to her, thinks she's absolutely amazing and beautiful, but now he's going to have to maintain a professional relationship because she is now working for him and also living in his garage. So, he really has to come to terms with how they're going to get on, and ultimately they don't, because their chemistry is so electric, they're so good together that he cannot keep his hands off her. And so while he is desperately trying to stay away from her, he absolutely cannot. But ultimately, like I say, this is an uplifting, light-hearted, fun read. She is an hilarious character. She's got some really funny sayings which Maxx absolutely loves, and what carries through into the second book in the series as well. So if you want if you've been reading a lot of dark romances recently and you want a bit of fun and try something a bit different, a bit light-hearted, I absolutely recommend this one. It was a real fun read. So there you have it. That is my wrap up for the first quarter with the 5-star books that I've read and some notable books that I also wanted to give a shout out to. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please remember to subscribe if you want to see more content from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye. It gets its place as one of the, which is book 1 in her. And in this one we're following Eric and broken by but you may not have read many of my videos. So this is my Q1 summary where I am gonna and today I'm wrapping up my